Welcome to Sunday School Studies with Rhondi Rabbit. And here's Rhondi. Say hi, Rhondi. Hi, everybody. Hi. So we are going to be learning about Jesus. Rhondi has been learning about Jesus already, and we're going to just keep on learning, because once you start to learn about Jesus, you'll realize that there is just so much to know. Don't you think so, Rhondi? So we hope that you will enjoy us as we study the Bible together, or the Bible stories. So today we're going to talk about the birth of Jesus. The birth of Jesus. Rhondi, do you remember when we talked about the birth of Jesus before? What do you remember already about it?
I know that Jesus, he was born with animals too, like me. I was born with animals, and Jesus was born with animals.
Really? That's true. So we're going to read a little bit, and we're going to talk about it. And we're just going to learn about the birth of Jesus, because Jesus is so important to us as Christians. In fact, we couldn't even be Christians without Jesus. And so Jesus came into the world just like all of us. He used to be little too. He was little like Rhondi is little.
And you were little like Rhondi too.
That's right. I was little like Rhondi too at one point. And so was every other person in this world. Because when we are born, we are not born big. We are born little. We are born little, and we need someone that loves us to help us and take care of us. And Jesus had someone who loved him very much and took care of him. Do you know who took care of Jesus?
Yes, it was Mary and Joseph. They took care of Jesus.
That's right. Mary and Joseph took care of Jesus. So let's read a little bit about how things were when Jesus came into the world, because the world was a very different place when Jesus was born. It wasn't like the world that we live in today, with cars that drive on the street so that you can get in your car, or you can
take an airplane.
That's right. You can take an airplane. There are different ways.
Take a boat.
You can take a boat. You can take an airplane, like you said. You can take a boat, and you can
take a train.
Yes, you could take a train. You could take a train too. And
walk.
Yes, you can walk too.
Run.
Yes, you can run places too. Well, but when you have a long journey, like we're going to read about what happened with Jesus. He had a long journey when he was about to be born. His mom and dad, his mother, Mary, and Mary's husband was Joseph, and they had a long journey. Okay, so like Rhondi said, today we could run, or we could take you can't run if you're going a really long distance, but you can take a train, you can take a boat, you can take an airplane. But back then, they didn't have those things, and they had to get around in a different way.
Donkey?
That's right. They took a donkey. They took a donkey, and that's how they had a journey. And so it was a really long journey that they had. So, when Jesus was born, at the time, the emperor Rhondi, Caesar Augustus.
What's an emperor?
Well, An emperor is someone who is a ruler. A ruler.
Like the president?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like similar to that. They rule a nation. And so the at the time they needed to take a tax.
What's a tax?
Well, a tax is when you have to pay some money for different things. So we all live in different places in the world, and and the things that keep the world going, there are taxes that people that live there, they pay taxes to help with the roads and the water systems and the electricity and all of those things, because those things take money.
Oh, I understand. I think I understand.
Yeah, so people pay a tax. It's some money so that those types of things can, be paid for. That's what was going on when Jesus was about to be born. They had to go to a certain place. Now today, you don't really have to go to a certain place, but these are things that you wouldn't understand yet, really.
I know. I understand a little though.
Well, I know you do. You do understand a little bit, and that's good. So back then they had to actually go to the place to make the payment, and so that's what they were doing. They were about to go somewhere so that they could make this payment because their taxes were due, and so they had to
take a donkey.
Yes, they had to take a donkey, and it was a long, long, long way.
Was it hot or was it cold?
It was hot, Rhondi. It was hot, and it was bumpy, and it was hilly, and it would be dark sometimes, and then because it took a long time. It wasn't like one day. It was a journey, and so they really had a long journey while baby Jesus was still in the belly of his mommy. Okay, and so that's what happened.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of journeying.
It was a lot of journeying, and but they did it because they had to. And so let's look at we're going to go ahead and see what the story is telling us. And so they were journeying, and so thank you. Rhondi helps. She's very helpful. Thank you, Rhondi. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so he also wanted to know if they were, well, I already talked about that part about the taxes. So they had to go to their own town, and we just talked about that too. We talked about the long journey, so they were journeying. They were actually going to pay the taxes. They left Galilee, and they were going to Bethlehem.
Was he born there? I sing the song, born in Bethlehem.
Yes, he was born in Bethlehem. That's where he was born. And that's why people sing the song. And some of you watching this video, maybe you sang that song at one time too. Born in Bethlehem, because that is where Jesus was born. So they went to Bethlehem, and it was a long journey, as we already said. And Mary had the baby Jesus in her belly, and they traveled for days and nights. And when they got to Bethlehem, Mary's belly started to tell her that it was time, that the baby was about to be born.
How did her belly tell her that?
Well, her belly, it probably, she started to feel maybe baby Jesus moving around more, or maybe achiness. It was hurting, and she knew it felt different.
Oh, it felt different.
Yeah, when it was time for baby Jesus to be born, and for every person to be born, the mommy's belly feels different, and that's how they know, or they think that it's probably time. And so she was right; it was time. But when they got there, Rhonda, so many people had traveled from such long distances and so many different areas, um, from different towns and different places, and they traveled there because they had to go to the place where their birthplace, their place of birth. And so they traveled, the families traveled to the place of birth. Um, and there were so many people there. And there were, you know how when you go on a trip,
When I go to visit my grandma, I go on a trip, and I go on a trip, and I see my grandma, and I see my granddad, and we go, and we drive a long time, and then we get there, then we stay at grandma's house.
yeah, so if they had a relative there that had a place for them to sleep, they probably would have done like you do when you go to visit your grandma and your granddad. But they didn't have that.
Oh no.
Right. So what are they gonna do? The baby's about to be born, right?
Oh no.
Right, Randy. So it was a serious situation. They didn't have any place. There were no more places in the inn. Back then they called it an inn. Today we still call places inns sometimes, but normally it's talking about a hotel or a place like that. So all the rooms were filled up.
Oh no.
That's why he had to be born where the animals were, like you told us before.
Oh, that's why.
Yes, that's why. Because there was no space. And so the person who owned the inn said that they could go and stay where the animals were. And so let's take a look. See the animals?
I see the animals. I see the big one right there.
Yeah, that's a big one. I believe that is a cow. And yeah, so there were all types of animals there in the barn.
Rabbits?
Might have been some rabbits. But there were different animals.
Chickens?
Could have been some chickens. We don't know. It doesn't really say all of the animals, but there were animals because that's where the animals stayed. And so they had to go where the animals were. And while they were there, baby Jesus came into the world.
Yay! Baby Jesus was born!
Yes, Rhondi, and that is something to be so happy about.
Yay!
Yes, you know why?
I know why. I know why.
Why?
Because Jesus came to this world so that we could all be saved. We could all be saved. And then we can be happy. And we could go to heaven someday. And that's why he came into this world so that people could be saved. And so the good things would happen. And so the bad things would stop happening. And because
That's right, Rhondi. I know Rhondi gets so excited about the Bible stories and about reading the Bible. But you know, we should all take a lesson from Rhondi Rabbit because Rhondi has a heart to love Jesus. Jesus did so many wonderful things for us. And when someone does something so wonderful for you, you should be excited about it. You should be happy about it. And so Jesus was born. And so read the story about the birth of Jesus.